Welcome back to Sports Nightly. I'm Jessica Cootie, and it is time for our final check-in of the 25-26 academic school year with the University of Nebraska System President, Dr. Jeff Gold. Dr. Gold, it's good to see you again. It's the summer, but are you resting any this time of year?
No, this is a busy time of year for all of us, and certainly it's been a really busy couple of weeks and months, actually, for collegiate athletics, both here in Nebraska with a bunch of great news stories, and of course, on the national level, and I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about that as well.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive into that because you're heavily involved. But let's start with some great news. Huskers softball, what a way for this program. They've been special all year, right? But to get to the Women's College World Series, what a win over Arkansas. But you were there pretty much every step of the way. I mean, how proud are you of this program, of Coach Ravel, and just this group, the way that they were able to kind of put this program back on the map?
Well, it's a great program. Coach is amazing. I think the timing of naming the field to honor her is just great timing, you know, to achieve over 50 wins in the season. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't call out Jordy's excellence, you know, to be in the 2020 group for 2 seasons is truly amazing. And all of the national accolades that I hear, they keep rolling. So to her and to her husband and I guess soon to be family, it sounds like we're so happy to have you join us as a coach in the program. We look forward to a long relationship.
And then Husker baseball as well, getting to host a regional for the first time in a long time, and everybody talking about that atmosphere out there at Haymarket Park. Came up short of advancing to a super regional, but I know that was the goal, was to be able to host a regional, and they also had a spectacular season. Yeah,
I think 42, 43 wins, if I'm not mistaken. Not that I track this for every game, but I do, and have been at many of them, certainly the home games. I was... you know, I can tell you I was up in Omaha when we played Creighton too, and just looking at the fans, it looked very red to me. There was a lot more red than there was blue, and that was their home, home court. You know, again, to the coach and to all the players, it's just been a great year, and we just continue. You know, success breeds success. It breeds it academically. And it's certainly success breeds success athletically. People have a very solid and a very, can-do attitude. I'm sure that many of our fans are also professional basketball fans. And if I just watched the recent Game 4 at Madison Square Garden. You think about it, the Knicks were down 29 points, and they just never gave up. And we can talk an awful lot about what happened during the second half. But at the end of the day, it ended up as a W. And I think that's a lesson to all of us, myself included, that when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and you just got to knuckle down and do the job and win. And they did, and we do, whether it's in the classroom, the research lab, the gridiron, or the hardwood.
A lot of conversations we've had throughout the spring is we've been talking about momentum and with athletics, but also across the university, and it just seems like that's trending, and that's exciting for all of us here in Lincoln.
Well, there are a number of things on the athletic side that are exciting now. The Big Red rebuild, you can see cranes and fencing starting to go up around parts of Memorial Stadium. That's very tangible evidence. When they start to take our parking spaces away, it's real, of course. But when we get back to Devaney, I'm really excited to see what it looks like when it's no longer pure concrete, and we're playing back in Devaney as well. There's also, on the academic side of the house, we're just at the very, very final stages of the accreditation change that we've talked about previously, bringing UNL and UNMC together. There's a lot of excitement on the part of our faculty and our staff to see that happens correctly, seamlessly, that none of our students have any negative impact, and that it's all positive going forward. This is, of course, budget cycle for us. That is to say, the regents will, on their June meeting, have an opportunity to weigh in and then hopefully vote on our next year's budget as we begin to prepare for the next biennial budget in working with the legislature and, of course, in working with the governor's office. So a lot of moving parts. We just had another faculty member inducted into the National Academy of Sciences, Professor Calhoun here in Lincoln. That's a really big deal. I mean, these are very, very elite academic organizations, and every time we have a faculty member inducted, it's a a cause for celebration.
And you've talked a lot about just, again, the where we're headed with education and the things that have been going on here. Just, again, a reminder about the power of higher education.
Well, as I've said many times on our chats together, but also every time I get a chance to stand behind a microphone anywhere, that higher education, all of education, is the single most important determinant of not just of economic mobility, financial learnings, which it is, but more importantly, social mobility. To have an educated electorate underpins the core values of our democracy, and higher education is everything. And our job is to provide affordable, accessible, and most importantly, quality higher education, and to make it accessible to all, whether it's our Nebraska Promise scholarship programs that offer free tuition to any student with an adjusted gross income under $65,000 a year, which is roughly at our state median right now, whether it's the work we do to provide similar programming for our first responders. Of course, on the merit side, our Perfect ACT program, but now our Next Gen program, the Next Gen Scholars, which I don't know if we've talked about yet, but that provides full cost of attendance, meaning all room and board and tuition and fees for any Nebraska student that has an ACT between 32 and 35. And by the way, in case you're wondering how many there are about 460, at least last year, there were about 460. Now, many of them are University of Nebraska students, but some of them are not. There are about 160, 170 that chose to go to other universities in other parts of the country. And our job is to make them all accessible and successful here in Nebraska.
That's great. Going back to athletics, and another thing that we've touched on here in the spring is that you're part of multiple committees and trying to figure out what athletics is going to do moving forward, college athletics, and trying to improve. And, it's kind of chaotic and it continues to change here. I feel like every day, and some news stories have broken over the last couple of weeks. And so I guess maybe if you could give us your take on that, and maybe your thoughts on if things are going to get settled down, and if there are going to be some solutions that maybe figure things out and settle it down and figure out a path forward.
Yeah, so I'm sure our audience has been tracking this, as I've been tracking it very closely as well. But I think it's a fair statement to say that leading up to and now, since the House settlement has gone into place, the so-called NIL opportunities to pay players has resulted in a lot of confusion, and I'd even characterize it as chaos, not only among the A4 conferences, but through all the mid-level conferences and others across the country. And it's adopted a lot of national attention, in multiple different ways. One way, of course, was with the attempts by the SCORE Act to be developed by the United States House of Representatives. And last time I checked, unless you know something I don't know, it has not made it to the floor of the House because it hasn't had the political balance that it needed to be voted into law and then be passed on to the Senate and get 60 votes in the Senate. So last, I'd say 2 months ago, maybe 2.5 months ago, as we discussed, I was invited to sit at a round table invited by President Trump with about 35 other leaders across college sports. I know everybody from board members to a handful of university presidents, including myself, to many of the commissioners of the large conferences, to student athletes were there. Now, these were individuals who previously played, although right now there are quite a few playing student athletes part of the group. And that has resulted in a lot of work that was done with the Commerce Committee of the Senate, which, of course, is chaired by Senators Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell. And that has resulted in what is now, of course, known as the Cruz-Cantwell bill to protect collegiate athletics in 2026. Which was presented and had a hearing at committee about a week or so ago and is actually going to be marked up in the very near future. And so the Big Ten board, chaired by Darryl Pines and our commissioner, Tony Petitti, has actually worked closely together with all of us to identify those parts of the bill that are great and that, deal with things like eligibility, the transfer portal, agent fees, things of that nature, but also to identify parts of the bill that can be improved and strengthened because, let's face it, once Congress passes this, it's going to be quite a while before we get another bite at the apple to say, if we just did this or we should have done that, et cetera. And so I'm really proud of the work that the Big Ten has done, and I think the SEC is highly aligned with us. And so, speaking with both of the senators, Cruz and Cantwell, literally a couple days ago on a Zoom call that we had, they're pretty optimistic that they can get something onto the floor of the Senate and back to the House and executed and signed by the president, by the way, before the next football transfer portal, which would really be the key if we can get that done. Now, if you're making odds, that kind of timeline is extremely aggressive and will take significant bipartisan support. But I'll tell you, one thing that I really appreciated from listening to both of the key senators involved, and by the way, talking directly with our two senators, that there's a real sense of urgency, that this chaos or this confusion or the way that our players and our teams and our coaches are being put into very difficult positions as it relates to the CSC and as it relates to so many other things. Ongoing litigation, of course, we're looking at the current status of the so-called Kessler-Berman case, which is attempting to look at what an associated entity is and this whole concept of warehousing NIL. All of those factors really need to be put to rest and put to rest in a very expeditious fashion. So, as far as the bill is concerned, my job here is as best as possible to be sure that we don't toss the baby with the bathwater and we get something effective and sustainable into the future.
I think a lot of the coaches here have talked about, they've certainly expressed their opinions and maybe the things that they'd like to see that they feel like could be beneficial, but at the end of the day, all they can do is what they can do and what they have been presented, and they've done a good job with that, obviously, with the success that we've seen, and they'll continue to do that. So with that being said, what are you excited about looking forward to as the next time we'll chat with you will probably be in the fall, and we'll take on another fall season?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the coaches and thank Troy Dannon because he's been really a leader in all of this, and he and I talk multiple times a day because these national level issues regarding the bill and several other things, the Kessler case, et cetera, are literally evolving on an hourly by hourly basis. And we are so lucky to have somebody like Troy at the helm of Husker athletics right now, a very highly regarded national leader. But the fall, oh my gosh, am I ever looking forward to the fall. I can't wait to sit in my usual seats at volleyball. I hope I still have them. Only time will tell, but I believe that I do. I think Danny's done a great job. The recent competition out in Chadron was, sold out and amazing. I've already blocked my seats at Wrigley Field, and I'm going to go to Texas with the team, and I'm certainly going to go to Vegas with the team, but looking forward to a great season there. And, I've been spending more time and just recently spent a couple hours with Coach Rule and talking about, the challenges that all of collegiate sports are facing. And let's be very open about this, that a lot of these challenges are really football challenges right now. But, again, the round ball teams, the men's and women's basketball teams, great recruits, during the off season and a lot of success ahead. So I'm really psyched. The schedules are going to be challenging, and I know that. But, we're up for it.
Well, again, as always, I could ask you a million other questions, but we're about out of time. So as we wrap things up, final thoughts for the audience?
Yeah, I thought I would just make a quick comment that there are a lot of things that are important to college sports, and there are a lot of things that are important to our universities. But integrity has got to be one of the pillars that we are based on. And we can interpret that in multiple different ways, but there are clear corridors on how we define integrity in sports, how we define it in the classroom and in the research lab. And I'm really proud that that everything we do, the decisions that we make with our coaches and trainers, what we embody in the student athletes, and I've gotten to know a lot of them from all of our campuses, because all of our teams at UNO, at UNK, and here at UNL that are successful in their conferences, I host the teams and their coaches at the President's Home, and we celebrate them. But I also get to meet with these young women and young men. And I will tell you, the level of integrity, the character that these young men and women have is truly remarkable. And we have to rest our foundations upon those values. And I'm really proud that we do that every day.
Well, Dr. Gold, appreciate you stopping by today and really throughout the spring semester. It's always super informative, and enjoy the information that you pass along. And hey, before you know it, we'll be chatting with you up in the press box here for fall football games.
I'll be there. Look forward to it.
Well, appreciate your time. And again, we'll hear from him hopefully before you know it, fall football season. Again, Dr. Jeffrey Gold joining us here on Sports Nightly. We got to step aside for a break. More coming up right after this.